So hi, my name is Liz von den Driesch. I'm one of the marketing translation reviewers at Red Hat. In a moment, I will give you a presentation about writing for localization. If you have any questions, just let me know. And if I go too fast, you can always stop me. So first, I want to give you a preview. This presentation will answer 3 questions. 1, what is localization? 2, why does it matter to writers of English content? And 3, is there anything writers of English content can do to make localization easier? This will be followed by 4 examples and 4 writing tips. Then I will give you a chance to participate as well. And if you stay in time, there'll be time for question and answers. Okay, so let's get started. So what is localization? Localization is more than translation. It is more than just taking words and transposing them into another language. It means adapting content to fit a certain country, a certain region, or a certain market. So I want to give you an example, business emails. In a company like Red Hat, you might have a business email that reads like that. Hi Susan, it was great to see you at the fair. Would you like to stay in touch? Your friends at ABC Software. Now, if I translate this directly into German, it will be a disaster. German business etiquette has a very high degree of formality, so I have to almost rewrite it. And then it would read like, Honored Mrs. Smith, thank you for your interest in our products. Would you like to stay informed about upcoming releases, etc., etc.? Kind regards, the ABC Software team. And here a fun historical example of localization. This is Charles V. He ruled most of Western Europe in the early 1500s. He was said to be able to speak 6 languages, and he tailored it to audiences. I speak Italian to ambassadors, French to women, German to my soldiers, English to my horse, and Spanish to God. So why does it matter to you? You are writers of English content. I'm sure you are focused on your customers, and I'm sure it matters to you that your content is understood, also when it is localized. If you work for an international company, your content is likely to be translated into 8 different languages: French, German, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Japanese, Korean. Now, many people think that translation or localization is straightforward. It's a bit like, okay, let's take this English sentence. Now we want to have it in French, so we just dip it into a different color, let's say blue. Okay, so here and here we have the blue sentence, so now it's French. Or we kind of just put it into a red color, and now it is Chinese. So localization is everything but straightforward. Languages represent different cultures, and different cultures evolve different grammar, different linguistic structures. Okay. For example, sentence order. In English, we have subject, verb, object. In Japanese, it's subject, object, verb. In German, that's my language, it's verb in the 2nd place, and everything else can move around. In my language, there are 3 genders. Nouns can be male, female, or neuter. While in English, nouns basically just have 1 gender. Also, in many languages, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, French, nouns, pronouns, and adjectives have different endings. They reflect the gender and also the case, and if it's object or indirect object. Besides diversity, languages have different expansion rates when they are translated into another language. If you look at the green and gold bars, you can see that Spanish, for example, expands by 15 to 30% when translated. German expands even more. This means if I have, for example, I have a formatted 2-page data sheet. It might not be enough space. I might need a third page. If I have anything that has a character limit, like anything formatted, like buttons, spaces for headers, I might need additional space, 2 lines, 3 lines instead of 1. Interesting here is Japanese. Japanese contracts. Because of the pictorial language, it contracts 10 to 55%, so less space is needed. I guess it's similar for Chinese and Korean.
Probably less so with Korean.
I don't have the figures in my head, so. Okay, now we also have culture. And here, now this is very, very general, just a quick overview. China, Japan, Korea, for example. Cultures are very different to the Western European cultures. The English language reflects concepts like self-actualization, equality. CJK cultures are more focused on seniority. They place a high value on rank. And the direct informal approach as an American, US American, for example, would take could be very inappropriate. And cultures are generally more focused on the community, where the community is rated higher than the individual. So this is very, very general, just touching on it. Another illustration here is a variety. We have one reviewer who looks after international Spanish. International Spanish covers a huge amount of countries, as you can see here on the globe. It is also the second most spoken native language after Mandarin. And the main countries are Mexico, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, and Spain in Europe. As you can imagine, this covers a lot of different cultures. Even though all these countries have Spanish as their language, each country would have their own idioms, their own cultural contexts, and their own styles.
Vocabulary changes between countries as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what can writers of localization do to make, what can writers do to make localization easier? I have 4 examples, and this is the first one. Noun strings. So in English, it's easy to string nouns together. Of course, this creates a certain ambiguity, and sometimes readers might not be sure what is actually meant. So here I have an example. So yeah, what does that mean and how would we translate that? We could try to group words together. For example, we could say, well, we have storage business, unit management, and control feature. Or it might be different. It might be about management control. It might be about business unit. You can see it leaves a lot open. Okay, here's a writing tip. Unstring the noun strings and present all these different words in their exact context. Next one, generic gender, it. So now this is probably from the German perspective where we have 3 gender. But many, many languages have two gender. So what do I do with a sentence like that? So in English, you can get away with a sentence like that.
Pretty bad.
It's an actual example from redhat.com. Now, for me, in German, product is neuter, software is female, service is male. Yeah. So when I come to the it, I have the choice of he, she, it. Package is he, she, it. I have to be precise. And then I come to deploy it internally, and again, I have a choice of he, she, it. So I have to know what is meant. Same for like a language like Portuguese has male, female in their language, the nouns, and they also struggle with sentences like that. Okay, I mean, the tip is pretty clear. Avoid ambiguity and be clear in your writing. Okay, let's continue on. Now we have compound sentences. So I want you to read that sentence and remember the expansion rates. It's again a true example. Yeah. No, I mean, of course, I'm taking marketing examples. Probably technical writers wouldn't write stuff like that. But still, it's a bit scary example, isn't it? Yeah, so now if I have a whole page which consists just of sentences like that, now I'm going to tear my hair out. I have to cut it in two sentences, or maybe sometimes even 3 sentences. Okay, it's always good to provide information in chunks and or separate it into sentences. Now the last example is humor, jargon, idioms, puns. I guess you're all familiar with Seinfeld. There have been attempts to translate Seinfeld into German, even with overdubbing of the episodes. And something that is very, very funny when you see the original, you watch the overdubbed German, and it's a dud. Yeah, it's just not good. Actually, Seinfeld is very specific to Jewish second-generation immigrants in New York, and some things just can't be transposed into other cultural contexts. While in European country, in all the countries around the world, you will have comedies, you will have very funny TV shows, and it will be really hard to translate them into English. There is a very funny interview with the German translator of Seinfeld. If you want to have a read, I will send out the slides later on. You can have a look. So if you remember, you have readers around the globe, it might be useful to keep that in mind and to limit culture-specific humor and idioms. So let's come to the conclusion. So we answered 3 questions. What is localization? Why does it matter to writers of English content? And what can writers do to make localization easier? And here I have 3 takeaways. Apply minimalist guidelines. Keep your readers in mind. And remember the expansion rates. I have a lot of links. I will email the slides to you tomorrow, and if you like to have a look at them. One of them, I think it's the first one. No, the second one has an infographic on like a checklist for writers. Suyuk asked me during the tea break for something like that. And finally, are there any questions?
Yeah, just regarding the what it was, the expansion, right?
Yeah.
Is that like a like a study towards technical writing or what? Because I just feel like even based on the audience, the expansion rate would change. For example, if it's like in Japanese, you're using more kanjis, you might not use kanjis but just use say hiragana or katakana. It might change.
If you're writing for a younger audience,
Yes.
or
So I'm just interested in study if it's based on any.
it would also change, like depending on how polite you're being in Japanese. Things get longer.
But even in some of the other languages, based on the audience and the style of writing.
Yeah, I mean, of course, how much you write and the way you write it always depends on the audience. Now, this is specific to translation. So just generally, I think studies have been made about this. So that's why we came to these figures, kind of like, for example, 10% expansion, minimum of 10% expansion up to 35% for German. And when I started, I had many times issues with, I translated a promo banner and then I saw it on the live site and it kind of ran over pictures, the illustration looked terrible. And we've also, the UX team now understands that they have to create buttons that do expand, because otherwise you have a button and then the text goes over into the white area. And of course, I learned how to shorten. Yeah.
Quick question: Does German have like a, for want of a better phrase, a two-vu sort of split, like a polite form of you and a
Yes.
So do you have to pick that carefully, or do you always use polite? You always use polite, and you can never go wrong.
You can go also wrong if you put the polite in the wrong context. It's getting now because Germany is becoming more bilingual. More and more people speak English, so they're starting to bring in the informal you as well. But in a business context, you would always use the polite form. It's very formal business relations. It's like a very formal kind of detached communication in Germany. German-speaking language countries, as we say.
Would you also include when you say business communication, would you include technical documentation in that category?
Yes, there has to be the level of the register has to be higher, more formal than in English. I had to educate my translators about that because they got the information about the Red Hat voice, direct, authentic, and which is more like speaking, it's more informal. And in German, they have to make the language has to be more objective, less subjective, and also sometimes less active. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess that makes me think now is does that essentially, since that voice is so much a part of our brand, that sort of makes the brand different in different countries?
In a way, I was wondering about that too. And the thing though is, we talked about it. If in Germany we would say, well, hi, how you go? Like in the business context, hi, great you're here. You love our swag. That would be, people would take offense. They would take offense, and you're dealing with major banks, with insurance companies, with car manufacturers. So it has to fit to the whole picture. If you would just deal with software companies, it might be okay, but even IBM or, I'm not sure if that would go down well. Yeah. So it is, in a way, the voice is a bit different,
It's kind of imagine like Red Hat as Red Hat everywhere.
It's not because you transpose it into a different culture. In China, for example, it has to be even more polite. It just really So sometimes we have to emails. Sometimes I have to completely rewrite emails. And Luckily, I have somebody in Munich I can bounce it off with. And I know that for Japanese sometimes also it's very difficult. They get this American text which comes from the American way, which seems to be so straightforward, but it might be offensive, yeah, if you take it across straight. So that's why we do have to localize. Yeah.
We're a little bit over time.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
All right. Okay, so
Thank you.
you're welcome.